What's up, guys? DJ here from Florida. I've had a few requests on basically how I built this trike. So what it is an 88 Honda XR80 dirt bike, and everything that you see at the rear of the motor forward is the original bike. Everything from the rear or middle back is obviously what we built to do this. So with that being said, I'm going to remove some parts and show you guys a little bit. I'll start with the seat. Started out as a simple 2-pipe design, and I was going to put my bearings here, and then after doing research and seeing guys online, talking to a few people, obviously you want to spread your load out wider, so we went this route and added these wings on, which was technically an afterthought. If you look back on my build pics on the trike page, you'll see where I just had it set up this way with some like cheesy pillow blocks just to try it out and see what it's going to look like. So with that being said, we added the wings, put some extensions on here. I don't have any fancy pipe benders or nothing, guys, so some of this is just piping that was pre-bent that kind of suited my purpose. I wasn't going for anything fancy, I was going for functional. And as you can tell from some of the metal work that's not really completed on it, there's just a few cosmetic things that need to be addressed and made to look better and more presentable. But like I said, I was going for function at the time and just haven't gotten back to tearing it back down. So with that being said, the front shocks, or forks I should say, I chopped off about, I want to say 3 to 4 inches of the original spring to drop my front end down to counteract for not only the smaller tires, but wanting to have a really good center of gravity on this. That was like key for this build, was to keep it as low as possible. So with that being said, this top rail portion is off the original dirt bike and ends right here, this piece. It used to be mounted further up here on the neck or the down stem from the head tube, and the seat used to be mounted up here higher for the dirt bike. So I dropped that down, as well as dropped the front forks down on the spring length to drop the overall build down like you see it. So from this point back is where we added this extra portion for the rear subframe. All this is original to the Honda bike. To counteract for the lack of space in the rear and the smaller tires compared to the dirt bike one, I changed the gear ratio. Front used to be 12 or 14, can't remember. You can get anything from I think 11 to 18 for this particular bike. So I went from a 12 on the front to a 17, and on the back it had a 47, and I went to a 25 aluminum sprocket from BMI. Like I said, adapting for the smaller tires, or counteracting for them, I should say. They're going to need to turn a lot faster compared to what they used to, so you need to up your gear ratio. But you don't want to up it too much to where you don't have any torque left to spin these things over. Not that it's that hard, but compared to the BMX style builds, this is a lot heavier. So I have to work a little bit more to get the slide going, but it's not that hard. So with that being said, you still want to have some torque as well as a higher gear ratio. I'm not sure what these bikes topped out at factory as a dirt bike, but right now, according to my phone GPS, I'm getting somewhere between 53 and 55 mile an hour respectively topped out, and that's probably pushing the motor higher in the RPM range than I should. Also, the exhaust pipe is pretty much all original to the bike. I just cut, twisted, reshaped, rewelded where I needed to conform to what my new setup was going to be. From about here to just into the muffler where they go in is the only section that I had to add because it was a little bit short. Other than that, it's a factory exhaust system that came with it. This particular motor is an 80cc bottom end, and it has a 100cc head on it. So it runs a little better than the original 80cc setup. On the back, I just cut this deflector off, reshaped it, and try to form it down a little more, because it kind of shoots onto the frame right here. Afterthought for guys building these. Pillow blocks are going to be the way to go. I went with the go-kart bearing cassettes like these. They're not bad, they work. I'm sure they'll last longer in like a BMX style build, but as far as this goes with the extra weight, they tend to wear out in a few weeks. I probably ride, I don't know, a half hour or so each day, maybe less. So I'm not constantly on it, and it does pretty well for me. And I'll just order the bearings to replace them when I need to. Other than that, I went with a 4-inch wide tread. An afterthought on that would be to probably go to a wider tread tire, because I mean, it's just aesthetics, because right now you see I have this gap in here because my tread's only like X amount of space in this 5-inch, I think it's 5-inch or 5 1/4 inch wide sleeve. I like that stretched portion to actually come out here, so I'll probably be getting a different set of wider rims for it, as well as I'm thinking about going to a 1 1/4 inch axle setup versus a 1-inch. Not for anything in particular, more or less curiosity. I want to see if it holds up a little better. This axle kit I got was from BMI. It wasn't exactly true out of the box, but it wasn't enough for me to be bothered by it to send it all back and deal with all the shipping and all that stuff. So I went ahead and used it. I have a little bit of vibration, but these sleeves tend to vibrate a little bit anyhow. With that being said, on steering, I took the stock steering wiper off from the front here. That would normally stop it. Well, I should say it was already broken off, so it kind of worked out. But other than that, I dropped the tank back to get me more space. So now you can kind of see where my stock dirt bike seat bracket right here, where I originally connected up here. So we dropped that down pretty significantly to get a lower center of gravity. Like I said, that was my priority when building this. Other than that, you got stock electronics and wiring and cables for your clutch, throttle, etc. I originally didn't have a foot peg on it when I first started testing it. I was just using the stock ones because that worked for me. Then I went to a straight bar. I didn't like that because I'm 6 foot, so I needed a little bit more room. So then I redid the bar, and then at that time I still had the shifter back there. When I redid all this, I added a linkage and put my shifter here. So you can just pretty much leave your feet here now and not have to worry about it. Don't have any rear brakes. I personally don't see the point in it. You can do the e-brake effect, I guess, if you want, but on this build it just seems like it would be too much stuff to worry about. So with that being said, I just use the stock front brakes. They seem to work fine. I'm eventually going to go to a street style tread on this instead of the dirt bike one, but when you don't want to spend money, you have a tire already, why spend money? So other than that, there's 2 different ways you could do the rear axle. You can either make it to where, if you mount the pillow blocks back here, you can slide them back and forth to adjust your chain tension. I mounted mine solid and decided to go with an idler. The only thing here is make sure your mount piece is going to hold your sprocket where you want to. You can use shims to adjust it side to side or whatever, but you can see right now where I've had problems before because my hardware on my hub adapter loosened up, so that started moving, and then it started wearing weird on my idler. But all I gotta do is unbolt or loosen this and then jack it up, and that tightens my chain. It's pretty loose right now, but it's not a big deal. There was slight clearance issues, but you can see how well the chain, driveline, and the exhaust all worked out to stay under the seat. Like, I don't think it could have worked out any better myself, but if you try to build one out of a 2-stroke, because this is a 4-stroke, you got the expansion chamber on your exhaust pipe, and that's something you're going to have to consider when you got your feet up there and you got this huge expansion chamber just waiting to cook your leg. So I prefer to do builds out of 4 strokes just for that aspect, and then having to deal with mixing fuel and stuff and all that. I love the power bands in the 2-stroke, but I like the reliabilities of the 4-strokes. So pretty much I moved the tank back down the neck here to get me more steering clearance. So now I have a pretty good amount of steering. It's enough for the build. I don't have to do anything crazy. The stuff that the gravity guys get away with and some of the go-kart style builds get away with, I think what hinders me on doing some of the stuff is the added weight on the front wheel. I've tried 360s. I can get them pretty good. Once I start coming back around to the front, that tire starts chopping the concrete, so it's a little harder to get it to slide over. If I had more weight in the rear, I think I could pull them off easier, but for that, I'd rather just drift. I can't think of anything else that people have asked me about. I hope this gives you a pretty good idea of how I did this, and you can kind of get a inside idea of how I did it, so maybe it'll help you guys out with your builds. Another key thing to remember is when you're dropping suspension and lowering everything and this and that, you want to keep your motor pretty much at the same level you had it in the dirt bike. Reason being for oil pickup, and you don't want to starve the motor and fry it and all that good stuff. So when I dropped the rear, obviously it tilted my motor, so that's why I dropped my front, and it all worked out pretty well. So I have blown up the first motor we had with this. Something I would suggest, if you're going to let people drive it, a twist grip is not the way to go, because people tend to get excited and then they can't regulate themselves, and they're just out there over revving your motor, and then you have a dead trike. So what I would suggest is on eBay, pretty cheap, you can get a thumb throttle for it, and those have a screw, and you can limit the amount of throttle you give it, or that other people can give it, and then when you're riding it, you can just back it back out and have full throttle. But if you're going to be that guy that lets people ride their stuff to save you headache, because typically people are willing to ride and then sometimes not willing to come into the shop and help you out, it's kind of aggravation that you don't want to deal with. So I just try to tell people this stuff, and then maybe they can keep from blowing their motors up and all that good stuff. Now granted, the motor we had was 27 years old and probably on its way out anyhow. I'm not that worried about it, but it not only helps out with that, but people who are inexperienced from hurting themselves, because I've flipped this thing already. It does hurt, doesn't feel very good, but it was one hell of a ride. So with that being said, we'll look past that point. But any other questions, thoughts, comments? Like I said, it was just a garage build I did when I had time. So it's not aesthetically the most pleasing thing, but my overall intention was to be able to drift and have something that looked pretty much factory if Honda was to actually produce it. Some guys like to just take the swing arm, put bearings on it, throw wheels on it and go. But now you're riding up this high on a dirt bike frame with a go-kart rear end. You can tip over concrete edges, whatever catches your PVC, this and that. So just look out for stuff like that if you don't want to get this in depth into it. But I think it's well worth the time to do it right, keep your center of gravity low, and just have fun. So that being said, any questions, let me know, guys. Comment, let me know your thoughts, and I'll try to answer anything I can for you. Alright guys, have fun, keep it sideways.